lot of court cases kind of not doing what the companies want.
I
You
think
feel so bad for them. Or
Apple
not.
again, maybe go to the Supreme Court. Just it. It's impossible at this point for Apple to pretend that this is anything other than we make $20 billion plus
Oh
a
yeah.
year. Yes, we would like to, protect our interests in this case, so to speak. To which the only proper reply is, "This isn't your case. We don't care. You're going to be okay." It's crazy, but yeah.
All that to type google.com and settings.ini or whatever iOS uses for their default.
Look, I because of the nature of our world today with AI and everything, this could change, right? I would say if you had gone back a year or more and then back a decade or more, I would have said there's no way this is going to change. But today, this could change.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the factor of the matter is that, well, Apple knows better than anybody. I suspect with search, people don't think about it too much. I bet if it came up some Bing thing, people would start thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
um, the people who do think about it, the vast majority would just choose Google, right? I know there's some subset of people who are like, whatever, I care about privacy, I want to talk Go or whatever it might be. I just
The,
don't like
the the
Google.
the counter to that is those people have already switched from Google.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
so they must have the Apple must have at least a rough understanding of that data. Like they, uh, what stays in your iPhone, whatever, blah blah blah. But I know they have telemetry and they know what's going on your phone. Like they would know.
Yeah.
They'll often offhandedly say something like some super specific figure. We know that 82% of iPhone users dot dot dot, and it's like, really? How do you know that? That's interesting. So anyway, they know is my point.
I mean, they
So
have
yeah.
no legs to stand on here. It's
Well, there's 20 billion legs.
well, yeah,
So
they.
it's
Yes,
like
that
a
is very true.
centipede. Yeah.
But there's no justification for Google having to pay for this because it's like, hey, your users are going to do this anyways.
That's the thing I think they're actually protecting because whenever dust settles and everything happens, I think at the end of the day, some with plus or minus 10%, it's going to be the same people using the same search thing, except the difference is Google will not be getting $20 billion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Apple.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Google will get to keep $20 billion is effectively what's going to happen now.
Yeah. And that's going to help them a lot because they're going to be losing some money from search. Anyway, we'll see.
Unless ChatGPT, they could, I can't even say this with a straight face. Like they could replace it with Siri.
Well, Siri's going through her third makeover in as many years. So,
not even like a midlife crisis. It's a
I know
early
exactly.
onset dementia.
Yeah, I can relate, but it's yeah. Siri is like the 21st century Barbie, math is hard. What are you going to do? Hey, by the way, I forgot to mention to you offline, but there's a big autobiography happening. I think people will be interested in. I was talking about Michael Caine, the actor, but no, yes, yeah, actually, there's a Michael Caine one too, but yeah. So Bill Gates is writing 3 autobiographies because he's that important, but the first of the 3 is out today, and it involves his life up to Microsoft, which is the part of his life I care about the very least. Right. And then the middle book will be, of course, about Microsoft, which is the one we're all going to care about the most. And then the last book will be about how awesome he is now because he's found the light or whatever. But I will say there is kind of a mental health aspect to this book that I think is kind of important because I had kind of forgotten this myself, but like Bill Gates would sit there and kind of, you do that Rocky thing like all the time, And he was like, yeah, I was totally on the spectrum. Like we didn't have this language back then.
He acknowledged that.
Yeah. And he downplayed it. He said something about it was 50 or 75% of whatever, like software engineers, like people who worked at Microsoft writing software code were probably like on the spectrum somewhere. I'm like, yeah, it's actually 100%. And and if you know anyone who does this kind of work and you're like, yeah, no, they're on the spectrum. Like, of course they are. I mean, that's the one commonality. I think a lot of people are actually, but like anyone who creates anything really, I mean, has some aspect of this. And it's just that I think in Bill Gates' case, it was so overt. It's weird to me. It didn't occur to think of him as, I started looking at this stuff a couple of years ago. Like but he's like the poster child, especially for our industry. Like he's almost like the original OCD, ADHD, whatever. Um, he's
Hmm.
perfect. I mean, I remember early days at Microsoft. Well, early days for me, like in the '90s, there would be other executives there who looked just like Bill Gates and would imitate his mannerisms. Like you remember Jeff Rakes, that guy who ran Office for a while.
Oh yeah.
Jeff looked just like Bill Gates, and he would do the same thing. He'd sit in the meeting and do that kind of Rocky thing, and it's like, oh, what's happening? But
Hmm.
yeah,
We could call the first book the Jar Jar Binks book.
the prequel. Yeah, yeah. It's
Nobody
read
cares
by
about
Will
it.
Wheaton, by the way, if that matters to anybody. Will Wheaton is, obviously the actor as a kid who was on The Next Generation, but he's actually become an accomplished audiobook narrator
Hmm.
and Ready Player One, for example, and
Hmm.
the redo of The Martian. I still, the first one's still a classic, but also that Doom or the book about id Software. I think it's called Mastering Doom or whatever. Whichever one that is, he narrates that too. So I actually, he's probably pretty good. They should have had the actor who played Bill Gates on one of those movie, TV series things do it, like Anthony Michael Hall. No, Anthony, is that the guy's name? Anthony, the guy who was in The Breakfast Club, played Bill Gates, remember, in like Pirates of Silicon Valley or something like
Hmm.
that.
I can see the face, but I cannot.
Anthony Michael Hall. I think that's his name.
Hmm.
Not good with that kind of thing. It's not my part of the spectrum. The rainbow, Brad.
It is a rainbow. Beautiful rainbow.
It's
Something.
double rainbow.
Oh, what else is going on? Xbox announced some ID Xbox thing happening. I think it's this month.
Yeah, by the way, have you watched any of this? Phil Spencer's done a bunch of pretty big interviews lately. Have
Mm-hmm.
you seen any of this stuff?
Yeah.
I watched I think it was almost an hour long thing he did with a guy, who came up out of like the, IGN or what, one of the big places, whatever. But I was very good. And he is being very explicit that like we are doing portable gaming. Like it's not like,
Oh, I know. Like, there's
something
no
we look at.
hiding this anymore.
No,
There's
it's bizarre, and I have to say, like, I think it's purposeful because there's nothing ready, right? But that's the problem. They have nothing to say.
right.
So
I
it's
think
like,
that's
here's our exactly the same consoles, really, as we've always had, or we've had for this gen. And I think this is just a way to keep Xbox console fans on the hook because,
no. I think that's exactly what it is.
yeah, I mean, it's probably smart, I guess, but I can't think of a time. I'm positive there isn't a time in Xbox history that's been anything like this,
Yeah. Well, they have to
And
do something because Xbox fans are sitting there saying, "Well, look, my games are going to all these other platforms. Why should I buy
right,
hardware?" So then Phil Spencer does the media tour and says, "Look, we're still building hardware. It's going to be a handheld to keep people, to your point, hooked on the
yeah,
drip."
I kind of hyper focused on that part of that interview that I'm talking about because he gives his answer for that, and because you have to have an answer, um, but he's right. I mean, I think he is right in the sense that look, the pure play console thing is not working for us, so we have to, I get that people want that, but we have to kind of put that aside. So what does it look like without that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're doing the right thing. But for those people who do care about the hardware, and obviously there's some millions of them, there's going to be new hardware. Like I think that's still going to be an interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Anyway, it's just it's very interesting to me how it's not even transparent. That's not even fair. They're just like revealing things, like I think purposefully.
I think so too.
To
The
keep.
question is when do they
Yep.
reveal?
Yeah. So you just mentioned this ID event. There was
Mm-hmm.
that developer direct event. I feel like
Yep.
there's one of these events every 2 weeks now or something. Like there's
Which
like
would
this
be, if it
constant.
were, that'd be great for Xbox because that's what they've been
Yeah, but
needing.
they feel very frequent, like
Yeah.
these events, right? So obviously the indie stuff is on a whole new level. There was an article recently that said something like the weird indie games are going to take over the video game industry, and it's like, yeah, Call of Duty would like you to hold its beer. I don't think so, not quite yet, but there's no reason those games couldn't become bigger than they
Mm-hmm.
are, like as a stepping stone between truly casual gaming and then people who are dedicated to gaming. So this event, whatever, we'll pay attention. It's not like Doom and the next Halo. It's
Right.
not that. That's not an indie title, But I bet there's interesting stuff in there. There's always some great stuff there. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.